Hey everybody, I'm Zoe.
And I'm Chandi.
And this is Bound by the Cloak. Imagine commanding an 80,000-pound machine, navigating through bustling cities, and being on the road for miles and miles, or even days and days. There are times when you're surrounded by the bustle of traffic and people on heavily populated roads. At other times, you're able to glance out of your window and appreciate the majestic wilderness as you drive down roads that pass through rugged terrain and wide open fields. You've seen the sun go down, come up, and go down again as you make your way to your destination to complete your job. It's late at night. There aren't many other cars on the road, and it's just you and the rumble of the diesel engine. The trucking industry is the backbone of our supply chains, ensuring goods reach their destinations with precision and speed.
Today, we're chatting with Salena Lettera, a seasoned truck driver who not only maneuvers through the vast network of roads across the country, but also navigates the challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated industry. She's also the author of the blog, The Daily Rant, where trucking meets travel. With miles of stories and experiences, Salena brings a fresh and compelling view to the often unseen and underappreciated world of trucking. In this episode, we'll explore the challenges Salena faces, the adventures she embraces, and the powerful impact she's making just by following her passion. Salena, thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Can you tell us about yourself, your background?
Well, currently, I drive an 18-wheeler with my husband. We drive as a team. Throughout my life, I have done other jobs, many other different jobs. My main thing when I was growing up, my family owned a restaurant, so I did kind of every position possible in a restaurant. When you have a family business, you do whatever's needed. And I've worked in retail and hospitality. So that's kind of my main thing, is mostly the restaurant and hospitality business is what I was always in. When I moved from New York to Tucson, Arizona. And then when I met my husband, which now we're at 20 years together, he was a truck driver. And, we first met, we talked on the phone a lot while he was on the road. And I thought, that would be kind of a cool thing to do. So I eventually quit my job and went on the road with him. The first 2 years I didn't drive. I was just kind of a passenger in the truck, and I helped him with paperwork and enjoyed the scenery and that kind of thing. And then I went to trucking school in Tennessee, and I got my CDL. I wanted to find a short program for the CDL, and mine was actually a 13-day program. So I went and got the CDL, and then, we're owner-operators, so we own and operate our own truck. We're self-employed. So my husband's were leased onto a company. So the company that we're leased onto had a program where he could train me the remainder of the hours I needed in order to then drive on my own. I always liked driving, so I thought that it would be a fun job. 20 years later, I really like it.
What routes or areas of the country do you drive through?
We go everywhere. We've been all over the lower 48 and Alaska, and we've been all over Canada. There's 10 provinces and 3 territories. We don't have a dedicated route or a certain area that we work.
How come you haven't been to Hawaii?
Well, I've been to Hawaii, but not in the truck. We have been on an island with the truck. So we've gone to Newfoundland and Labrador, so Newfoundland.
Oh, okay.
So we took the ferry from the mainland 8 hours across the Atlantic to go to Newfoundland to deliver a load up there. So that was kind of cool. We got to see icebergs floating in Iceberg Alley, and taking the ferry on the truck on the ferry was kind of cool.
So what do you typically haul?
We started out hauling pretty much anything that can go on a flatbed, like a platform truck. So not like the box trucks that you see that deliver, toilet paper, groceries, that kind of thing. So we were always hauled equipment or building materials. We did honeybees one time where we took the honeybees from one coast to the other. But now we mainly do a lot of government equipment, military equipment. Both of us have secret clearances. So we do a lot of classified types of freight, but mostly that's what we do now because it requires a team, and the two of us do that. A lot of the military freight have husband and wife teams that do that.
Really?
Yeah, because
That's kind
somebody
of
always
cool.
has to stay with the truck. For instance, my husband goes into the truck stop to, pay for fuel or to get snacks or something. Somebody has to stay and watch the freight because it's a classified shipment, so they don't like it to be left alone.
So are you armed?
No, we're not armed,
No?
but
Okay.
we have actually done freight where we've had armed escorts. We did a load where we had a team, two guys who escorted us who were armed, and they stayed up all night and watched the truck. So we went to sleep, and one of them sat in their car and just, watched the truck. We were in the middle of nowhere, so it kind of was silly to me, but that was what the load required. One time we did something with pharmaceuticals. Like I always want to know what we're hauling, or like if it's a secret thing, my husband never wants to know. He's like, the less you know, the better. And I'm always like, I want to know what it is. But one time we did some kind of pharmaceutical thing that was worth a lot of money. We did an aircraft engine once that went to Canada they have something called the Maple Flag 40, which is a training exercise, a military training exercise. And we hauled a $4.7 million aircraft engine up there, which wasn't, necessarily classified, but that just it was an expensive, piece of equipment.
So walk us a day in your life on the road, and how long does a trip usually take?
The trips depend, but I would say, 2 to 3 days. So that's kind of like if we go coast to coast. So if we're taking something, say, from Seattle to Florida, that would be like a 3-day trip. And we run the truck constantly. So we're always moving. So a typical day, let's say we're picking up a load, we get up. Ed usually loads the truck. He usually is the morning driver. So he would load the truck, secure the freight, do all of that. If I'm up, I will do the paperwork. We haul a lot of hazardous materials. So if it's hazmat, we, and make sure that all the paperwork is correct because the driver, once you accept that, is responsible for everything being correct. So if you get pulled over and they check everything, you have to make sure you have all your boxes checked and the column has the right check mark in it, all that kind of stuff. So I usually go over the paperwork and, I might stay up, for an hour or two or, depending on what we did the night before. But because I'm the night driver, I would go to sleep. So, Ed will drive. We typically could drive 10 hours. Well, not 10 hours. You have to have 10 hours of sleep before you can drive your shift. Had we slept the night before, a normal night, Ed would do his shift. We do a split sleeper a lot. We'll do a 7 and 3 shift. So, for example, Ed will start driving. He'll drive 7 hours. Then I will drive 7 hours. Then he will drive 3 hours. Then I will drive 3 hours. And then we start again. That is just so we don't have to take our mandatory break. If you're driving 10 hours, you have to take a mandatory break before you hit the 8-hour mark. So, he drives whatever he does when he's driving, listens to the radio, that kind of thing. We have to check our freight every 150 miles. So we stop, get out, check all our securement, check our tires, make sure everything's okay. And then I would take over. And usually when I drive, I listen to podcasts for the whole time I'm driving. So I do my shift and then I go to sleep. So it's kind of, that's a normal day, just driving a load from picking up to going somewhere, especially if it's a load where, like I was saying, we have to be with the freight all the time. Other times, if we have a load where we can lollygag a bit, we might stop, make a dinner in the truck, stop at the store or something. That's if we don't have to watch the freight. Then we can kind of get out of the truck. That's kind of a typical day, just, a work day.
You're dropping things off and then returning like with an empty bed, or are you picking something else up and then dropping it off somewhere else?
We try and pick something else up because we're self-employed. Well, we use a lot of agents that know us. So if we're in a certain area, Ed will call the agents in that area and he'll say, "Hey, we're unloading on this day. If you have anything, give us a call." There's also it's called a Qualcomm. It's a system that the freight comes into us on a separate system. So we'll check the Qualcomm. If anything comes up in the area we're in, we might call on it. Typically, we kind of know agents in that area, and because we do the specialized freight, ammo, ammunition, and explosives. So AA&E agents, they have the specialized freight. They know us. They'll call us, and then we go wherever the next thing is. There's certain areas of the country that are like they don't have a lot of freight. So we try and stay out of there so you're kind of not sitting around forever. But and we have implemented Ed, my husband's SAW system, which we call sit and wait. So Ed would rather sit and wait for a good paying load than take something just to keep moving. So sometimes we'll sit for 3 days, sometimes it could be 5 days. It pays more money than taking some other load just to keep moving.
How often do you guys get stopped for inspections? I know sometimes truckers get stopped for inspections.
Probably once a year. Our company has a very high safety rating. So when you go through the truck scale, as you approach the truck scale, they will tell you whether you have to go into the scale or not. So we don't get pulled into the scale a lot. They don't expect that they have to check us. We get the green light. But every once in a while, you get pulled in for an inspection, like a full inspection. And I would say that's like once a year.
You're really good at taking care of the truck, but how do you take care of yourself when you're on the road?
Exercises, I've never been a big exerciser anyway. I mean, even in my normal life and normal jobs that I've ever had. So that really hasn't changed for me. But Ed, when he, was trucking by himself, he would get out, he would run. He's was always very athletic. So he would run, jog, do calisthenics outside of the truck. He gets probably more physical activity than I do because the job is physical for him, like when he's, loading and doing things and working on the truck. We do eat a lot of fast food because it's convenient, but we have a kitchen in our truck because our truck is a specialized piece of equipment. So the inside of our truck is like an RV. We have a shower, a bathroom, a kitchen, in-motion satellite television. When the bed is up, it's a little, dinette table. So it's more kind of like when we're sitting around, we have all of the amenities of home. So I have everything in the truck to make any kind of meal. And as far as mental health, I don't know. I feel like I've always been I always keep my mind very active, as far, at home, I'm always reading. So there's always something going on to keep that stimulation. Of course, we're 3 feet apart, 24 hours a day when we're in the truck. So, if you have a husband or a partner and, I always tell people, imagine you're sitting in, like a walk-in closet for 3 days. So I would say that after 20 years, we obviously get along well enough to be constantly together in that space.
I mean, I think because it's kind of cool that you have a truck that's big enough that you can kind of spread out, have space. What is your favorite restaurant when you're traveling? Like, what is your kind of go-to place?
Well, we have a couple of different favorites that we go to when we're in a certain area of the country where, we might not have that restaurant somewhere else. I mean, we like to do Mexican food a lot because I don't cook that. There's like a steak place in Amarillo that we've gone to, which is the Big Texan. Like my husband's from Texas. So if there's a barbecue restaurant, I grew up in New York, but we didn't grow up with that. If there's a barbecue place within probably, 40 feet of our truck, Ed wants to go there.
What's your favorite rest stop chain or bathroom?
I love the Pilot truck stop. So the major chains are Pilot, Love's, the TA, which is the Travel Centers of America. And then there's a couple of little truck stops throughout the country. Like there's one called the Garden of Eden, which has you go in and it's like the Garden of Eden. It has like snakes hanging from a tree. And there's one in Indiana called Our Place with the letter R, Our Place. But my favorite chain truck stop is the Pilot. It's always clean. It's always, they have great coffee. It's neatly laid out. A lot of truck stops have trucker only areas. And as a woman, because when I started, there was 4% of the industry was women. Now it's like, I don't know, 6.5% or something. But the women's bathroom in the trucker area, there's never anybody. Sometimes like you'll pull up to a truck stop and there'll be a bus outside of tourists. And so, of course, the ladies' room always has a line. Well, I just like skate back to the trucker area, and there's nobody in the that area. But yeah, Pilot's my favorite. They have everything I need in there.
Especially with the freight that you haul, it can be a little bit risky. So, how do you keep yourself safe?
No, I mean, I have Ed. He's a former Marine. It can be risky, which is, one of the reasons that they like to have two people doing the freight. We are not weapons owners. So, and Ed has been doing this job for 26 years and has never had a problem anywhere. I mean, you sometimes see like guys fighting on the fuel island, but as far as for us with the freight, you kind of are aware of your surroundings. We've never had any incidents at all, ever, in the 20 years I've been doing this, and I don't think Ed's had any in the 26 years he's been doing it. But sometimes they say, you just be aware. Is anybody following you? Do you see the same car? We do our first load check always is within the first 50 miles of picking up the freight. So, you check your load, you kind of are watching your surroundings. You probably notice if somebody pulled into the truck stop or rest area behind you. Sometimes with the kind of freight we haul, they will send a team to watch you to make sure you did your load checks, so they're driving behind you. But, nobody's going to follow you for 600 miles.
I mean, that's good. That's good. You guys have mostly had a positive experience, so that's great. When you guys do have any kind of free time, do you do any activities? You go hiking or?
No, never do. We do so we have always carried our bicycles on the truck with us because you can't park an 80-foot vehicle just anywhere. So we have liked to do that to get around. I do not like a lot of physical activity. I'm not an exerciser. I'm not a hiker. But riding a bike doesn't feel like exercise. It doesn't really feel like, I would rather ride the bike the distance that I would have to walk. We went to Chicago once and we rode around all the bike trails in the city. And, it was just, it was much more fun than walking around the whole place. So we do that sometimes. We do try and do a lot of kind of, I don't want to say touristy things, but we try and look at stuff. I always look at I always Google things that might be interesting to do in that area. Now with the onset of Uber, which, we didn't have in the beginning of driving, that's very helpful because you can just get an Uber anywhere and go see something or go to a museum so we do try and do that.
Since you've been to so many places, have you ever come across the same truckers, or do you just not ever see them again?
Sometimes you do. More so because of the kind of freight we haul. There are other teams that do the same thing. So we'll see the same teams in these places. There's a place that we go up to near Seattle that they have the military facility is on an island. So they have a little area, an RV park area where there's parking spots right on the water. So when we go there, you can stay at their little campground all weekend. So we plug the truck in. We're sitting there on the coast of the water. And a lot of times we'll see the same people there because they do the same thing. So we do see the same truckers there. We have friends of ours that we've been friends with for 15 years now, who actually, when they started driving, they found my blog. The woman contacted me and her husband was like, don't bother them. What are you writing to her for? So she wrote to me because she was interested in what she read on my blog. We've been friends since then. They've spent multiple, holidays with us, they know all of our family. And sometimes we'll see them on the road. We'll meet up with them. Another thing is we used to go to Mid-America Trucking Show, which is held in Louisville, Kentucky every year, largest truck show in the country. And a lot of times you see the same people there.
So the truck show happens once a year. So do you guys go every year or
That one happens once a year. There's another one, I think, in Las Vegas. I don't know. We've never been to that one. But the Mid-America Trucking Show happens every year. They have, all the truck manufacturers are usually there. any kind of equipment manufacturers. A lot of people go, like when we bought our new truck, we went to go look at equipment, trailers. They have informational shows, and then they always have a concert every year that's free. It's always a country music.
Obviously, this is one thing where I feel like people associate with trucking, which is like, CB radios and things like that. Like, what is radio culture like now? Is that what you guys still use to communicate? And, is there any like particular lingo that you guys use frequently, like to communicate?
Cell phones have killed CB radios.
Okay.
The only time we have a CB in the truck, only time we ever use it is if there's a traffic jam somewhere, like all of a sudden traffic stopped on the highway and the other side is going. So we'll say, hey, eastbound, what's going on? And they'll say, oh, there's an accident or there's construction, or nobody uses them. It's kind of interesting because even when I first came out here 20 years ago, there was more activity on the CB. And I would have it on and I would listen to sometimes, sometimes guys would just talk.
Just talking.
If you do have it on, sometimes somebody will say, that the chicken coop is open, which is the weigh scale.
Okay.
Or there's a smokey, a bear, like a cop up ahead. They use that kind of lingo. They still do have their own language.
CB is dying, or it's dead already.
Dying.
Did you drive during COVID? If you did, how was that? Did that kind of change how you thought about the industry and your job?
We did drive during COVID. In fact, we were in an accident in March of 2019. We totaled our truck and trailer. We were driving in Oregon. I was sleeping. Ed was driving. It was 3:30 in the morning. Ed hit a cow that was on the interstate. There were 3 cows on the interstate. We were carrying 40,000 pounds of explosives, and we went off the road into a field. Thank God, not anything else. But we went into a field and totaled the whole truck and trailer. The cow hitting the truck. So that was 2019. We had to get a new truck built, which took 10 months. So we had to wait for that. We both got hurt. We both did physical therapy for like 10 months, 11 months. And we bought our new truck and we got it late in 2019. Ed did the modifications on it that he needed to. And we went back to work March of 2020. So that's kind of when the whole COVID thing started. And we did work all through COVID. It was fantastic regarding traffic because nobody was out. Once the vaccine, came out, we got those because a lot of places, like you couldn't go to Canada if you weren't vaccinated. Any of the facilities we went to, all of the military bases being government operations, you had to wear a mask, which for us was fine. A lot of truckers hated the idea of that because they're all anti-mask, anti-vax, that kind of thing. That actually benefited us in some cases because we took some loads that people didn't want to take. During COVID, we still, the military stuff still kept going. Like I said, we don't do regular freight anymore. For us on the road, it was like nothing changed. Really, nothing changed.
Are there any aspects of your daily routine that might surprise people?
Not showering as often. Even though we have a shower in the truck, maybe something that might surprise people is that we're always on the job. We essentially are available and working 24/7. Even if you're in the truck and you're sleeping, or if you're off that particular day or that afternoon, the next morning we might have a load. You're kind of always at work. Everything is federally mandated for what we do. Our hours of service, which is what it's called, hours of service, which is how many hours we have to sleep versus how many hours we're allowed to drive. We have, there are restrictions as far as parking. You could be delivering somewhere, be tired, really want to go to sleep, and not be able to find a place to park immediately. Not that you're going over your hours of service, but you're just tired and you want to go to sleep. So parking is an issue. A lot of people, they don't want trucks in their neighborhoods or their communities. There's a lot of restrictions in certain communities. People don't want you parking there. So I don't think they think about that. Like when they get their, strawberries, at their grocery store, that guy is delivering them. Where is he going to go to rest or sleep? So in certain places that we go, whether we go to LA or San Diego or whatever, sometimes we have to drive an hour back out of the city to find a place to park or a truck stop. Some states have speed limit restrictions, like California. trucks can only do 55 in California. Everybody else can do 75 or whatever the speed limit is. In some states, Texas, it's 80, that a regular car can drive. They think, oh my God, this truck is annoying and slow in front of me. And they don't realize that we have a restriction. We can't go any, faster. We're monitored all the time. Like, we have onboard computers. Our hours of service are monitored by the Qualcomm machine. So you can't drive past your time or else you get a violation. So you're always kind of like looking at the clock in a sense. We have cameras on our truck. We have all cameras outside of our truck. So, just for our own safety and for in case anything happens. But a lot of drivers nowadays that work for companies have forward-facing cameras. So there's the camera in the truck that faces the driver. So they see if you're on the phone or not paying attention or that kind of thing.
So what are some common misconceptions about women truck drivers and maybe just truck driving in general?
Well, I think one of the biggest misconceptions, not about women truck drivers, but about the trucking industry in general, is that there's like truck stop hookers everywhere. Oh, lot lizards, and that's like not really a thing. I mean, no, it is a thing. There are areas, but it is really not as common as people think. Well, I'm fascinated by it. Like I always say to Ed, I just want to pay one of the truck stop hookers because I want to talk to her. Like I want to know, like, how did she get into this? And I just find it very interesting. I mean, there's a truck stop in California that we've gone to where you see the girls like scurrying under the trucks. It's like I'll sit in the front of my truck in the dark, and just kind of watch the parking lot. And they are out there where they come knock on your door. And like if I'm sitting there, like I just wave them away. Or if you have the curtains closed and you hear the knock on your door and you kind of open the curtain, you see the girl standing there and you go, no, go on. And so they do that. In some truck stops, you'll hear on the CB, if you have it on, that they are looking for business. So they'll say, anybody looking for commercial out there? So it's like commercial business. But there's a organization called Truckers Against Trafficking. Because we're always out there, because we're in so many places, they ask truckers to keep their eye open for people that you think are being trafficked. And if you have a concern, there's a number you can call and that kind of thing. When people see me in the truck, especially girls, they'll like give me a thumbs up, or they'll like think it's cool. Like you could see their face kind of light up in a way like, oh my God, she's a girl, they're fascinated. Like you're driving a giant machine. Really, I mean, I tell people it's just like driving a big car. I feel like I always get a double. I even do a double. Oh, there's another girl driving, so.
It is really cool to see because when I was a kid, it would just mostly be, you'd always just see male truck drivers or more manly butch women. So it's actually kind of cool now, especially with social media and everything. You can see what female truck drivers really look like and kind of get to, get to know them a bit and see that they're all different types of women just driving a truck, which is awesome. Have you guys ever faced any kind of discrimination or any bias on the road? As a woman, as a couple, as just in general?
I have not. Like, I have never felt a discrimination or anything at all, in anything I've done. So maybe I'm not the kind of personality that that picks up on that. I don't see it. So, but Ed is just saying that as a woman, I have gotten preferential treatment. He feels that, and this has happened. He's right. I mean, we've gone to places where I have gotten special treatment, I think, because I'm a woman. I mean, I've gone to places where I've got, we're waiting to get loaded. And Ed's like, well, I went in and I checked and, that they said they're not ready yet. I'm like, okay, well, we've been here 3 hours. It's ridiculous. I'm going to go in and talk to them. So like I go in and they're standing around, smoking a cigarette and I'm like, are we going to get loaded or what? Now I'm a New Yorker. So I'm very, I'm a little bit,
Blunt,
I'm a little bit, right. I'm a little bit different than, Ed is from Texas. He's like super polite. I'm a little more firm and forward. I remember one time I was in a parking lot. I made a turn and they're called glad hands and they're They're the air lines that hook up from the truck to the trailer. So they supply air to the trailer. So I turned too much and it popped off. So like I lost my air and I was like, what the heck? I can't move. Ed was sleeping. So I got out of the truck to like look to see what, like I didn't even know what I was looking at. But like I got out of the truck to look and like a swarm of guys, like 3 guys came to help to my aid. Now, if that was Ed, nobody would have helped him. But they came out and they were like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. That would not have happened with Ed. Another time I was stopped in Texas, and I was stopped because my license plate light was out. So the cop stopped me. I got out of the truck. I went to the back of the truck to see the trailer where he was talking about the license plate light was out. Then we started talking about the truck. He's like, oh, it's a really big truck. It's really nice. And I'm like, oh, I would show you the inside, but my husband's sleeping. So I said, you know what? Hold on a minute. So I went and I got my laptop and I brought my laptop out and I set it on the back of the trailer bed. And I showed him pictures of the inside of the truck. And he was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And, I'm like, oh, look, we have a shower. And I'm showing him all the pictures. And I didn't get a ticket. He's like, you know what? Just, next truck stop you stop at, just get a light, get a bulb for that. I'm like, okay, thank you. Another time we went through a scale in California, the Banning scale, which is always known for like being tough. I mean, they sell T-shirts that say like, I survived the Banning scale. It's a really tough scale. We pulled through that scale. Guy was standing out there, the DOT officer, and he was pulling trucks in and like by pointing to them, like, you go to that bay, you go to that bay. He pointed to one guy and then he saw me in my truck. So behind that guy. So he said to that guy, you go ahead, you bay 2, like whatever bay they told me to go to. So I went into the bay. I'm always nervous for getting a inspection. So I went into the bay and I was just like chit-chatting with the guy sitting in the truck while he was doing the inspection. And he's like, are you nervous? I'm like, a little bit. I'm like, I'm always nervous when this happens. He's like, well, you're doing fine. Don't worry about it. So when the inspection was done, I got a sticker for the window. So the sticker's good for 3 months. Come back in the truck, the guy gives me the sticker. And Ed's in the back because, he's in the sleeper. Even though he was awake, he was in the sleeper. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, I can't believe you got a sticker. He's like, I've never gotten a sticker to the Banning scale. I got the sticker and I felt like, oh, that was kind of cool. I passed that. But yeah, I think that maybe I do get that kind of different treatment because being a woman.
So you've been in the industry for 20 years. And how have you seen this industry evolve in terms of inclusivity or support for women?
Since I've been in the industry, they did in the beginning, I think it was a couple of years in, there was the Women in Trucking Association. They did really want to celebrate and recognize the women that were in the industry because we're a minority. I've seen it change with, like I said, more women in the industry. And I don't know this off the top of my head. I'd have to research it because I know I've come across it before. But there are companies that have been said are better. They're just better for women drivers. You'll hear that, oh, this company does great for team drivers, or this is a great company for solo drivers. There are companies that are better for women drivers, hire more women drivers or appreciate them more. I think it's a great job for women. It's empowering. You feel like you're contributing to the society because, if trucks don't run, we don't work. Like, we bring everything. I feel very cool driving this truck. I mean, I feel like, wow, I can't believe that. Sometimes I still say that when I'm driving. Like, I can't believe I'm driving this big truck. Like, I could wish my grandfather could see me doing this. He would have loved the idea of me doing this. I think it's a good job. You can make a lot of money and we're self-employed. So we kind of, the ability to say, yes, we want to do that, or no, we don't want to, or I feel there's a lot of freedom in this job.
How has technology changed your approach to truck driving? And I guess what tools or apps do you use that you find indispensable?
Well, when I first went on the road with Ed, we were using paper logs. When Ed first started driving, there were actual paper logs where you were writing down your hours in a logbook. That evolved to then a log on the computer. So when I first started driving with Ed, he had the logbook on the computer. So you would just enter all the information on the computer and then you'd print out your log at the end of the day. Now we log everything on the Qualcomm. So all of that, we don't have any paper anymore. We don't print anything out. That all goes directly to, the company. They track all that. As far as apps, of course, like mapping apps, GPS. Ed didn't have GPS. Ed did everything by using a real map, real map book. I mean, we use apps for like fuel stops, like to find the best price of fuel in the country. Yeah, we use weather apps too, because you kind of never know what's going on.
What's a super funny story that you've had on the road?
The most fun part of our job for me is that we get to go a lot of places. Like I said, I research if there's anything in the area that we want to see. Like we went to the Biltmore Estate in Asheville, North Carolina. Loved it. We toured all the Gilded Age mansions in Newport, Rhode Island. Loved that. Of course, I'm watching Bridgerton right now. I'm loving all of that time, that period stuff. Other interesting things we've done, we've taken, like I said, the ferry with the truck. The load that we do to Canada a lot, there's a ferry involved. But the other one took us across the Atlantic where I said we saw icebergs. At first, I was like, what is that thing in the water? Like I'm looking. And it was an iceberg. And this area is called Iceberg Alley, where all the icebergs flow down through the Atlantic and come through that area. So like that was something I've never seen before. We've done some loads for FEMA. For rescue loads. When the bridge collapsed in Minneapolis, Interstate 35, trucks, people, cars went into the water, and they were doing a rescue mission to find people that didn't survive. And we brought a Navy diver unit up there for the Navy diver team. So it was kind of like in a container, and we brought the whole container up there like it was a command unit. So we brought that right to the base of the bridge, to the water line. And the Navy diver commander that was there, I said, can I take pictures? He took me over, he walked me down there. He said to let her through, she's going to take some pictures. So like that was kind of cool. Most of the truck shows, they have a truck beauty contest. And so these are people who really they love this. They have either vintage trucks or it's like going to a car show. Everything's all shined up and all their chrome is shiny. And, they have colorful graphics and stuff on their trucks, and they sit there and they give out they give out a little awards like best whatever, best graphics and best chrome or that. So people really get into that. So that's kind of a fun thing. But I think I like most is that we get to do a lot of things. Like we were just in Shipshewana, Indiana, which is a very small town, all Amish, and we were there. And at the performance center, Gladys Knight was playing. So we got tickets. I mean, it was like right there, like a mile from where we were sitting. So we went to see Gladys Knight in this 1,500 seat venue, really small venue. It was great. We got to do that. So it's those kinds of things that I like when we're on the road and we get to do fun stuff.
And speaking of doing fun things outside of working, I guess, how do you manage your work-life balance being on the road?
In addition to the visiting, doing things and going to see stuff, we try and visit family if we can. I have family on the East Coast. Ed has family in Texas and Florida and California, that kind of thing. So if we can see family and we're there, we call them. And, it's always last minute. If they're available, great. So we try and do that. But in our downtime, I don't know, I guess we kind of do the same things we do when we're home. We're on our computer, we watch TV, we watch movies, we sit around, we take naps. But we do the same thing on the road. If I have to go grocery shopping, we go grocery shopping. If I have to go do laundry, I hate to do laundry. But on the road, actually, Ed always prods me to do laundry. He's like, come on, let's just go and get it done. He's like, come on, once it's over with, it'll be great. I actually don't mind doing laundry on the road because at home, when I come home and I have a big, huge bag of laundry, you're washing and then you got to get up and you got to put it in the dryer and then you put the next load in the washing machine and then you put it in the dryer. But when you go to the laundromat, you got 4 loads at once and then you do 4 loads of dryers. And then Ed always helps me fold everything. So it's done and it's quick. We have those kind of things that we have to do too. We go shopping, we do grocery shopping and that kind of stuff. We have had groceries delivered to our truck. We have grocery and Instacart and Walmart delivery and that kind of stuff. So, but we've done that in the truck too, where we've ordered online and they've delivered the groceries to the truck stop at our truck, which makes it more convenient. But yeah, we kind of do the same thing we do home: read, watch TV, play on our phones.
Any advice, anything that you want to kind of tell women who are thinking about getting into this industry but haven't taken the leap yet?
I would tell them that it's probably not as scary as they think it is. They might think, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can drive a truck that big. I don't know, if I can back up. And, they may be nervous because they don't know anybody who's done it. Like I always tell people, like I've had people contact me through my blog for questions about this. My husband wants to, change careers. He wants to get into truck driving, or we're thinking of doing this as a team. Do you have any recommendations? I always write back to everybody a dissertation. They're probably like, oh, I'm sorry I even asked this lady. Because like I would like bullet point everything, I would say probably it's not as scary as you think it's going to be, that you can do it. It's very easy once you're doing it. It takes some getting used to. I mean, like I knew how to drive a shift, car when I did this, but it's different in a truck. I mean, I remember going up a hill in California, and so as you go up the hill, you have to downshift into lower gears, right? So I wasn't good at that. Like it was hard to do because you have to catch it at the right time. You have to do the clutch at the right time. You have to have your RPMs meet, like it's all this stuff that you have to know, or that you have to just do it at the same time. And I wasn't good at that. And I remember I had to stop on the hill and start from first gear again because I couldn't downshift quick enough to get into the gear I needed. So I'm not moving. Not a lot of traffic, so I wasn't worried about that. But I had to stop and start from first gear again and just get going that. There are those things that you learn as you go, but I don't think it's as scary. I think you can do it. It's fun. I hate to use the word fun because everybody has a different idea of that. Like, I am not a fun person. Like, my default answer is no. Like, when Ed says, do you want to do something? I'm like, I say no before he even says what it is. I'm like, no, not really. So I'm not like, I don't like to use the word fun because everybody has a different idea of that. It's enjoyable. Like you get to see a lot of the country. So in my first year, I even went to Alaska. We drove to Alaska. So you meet a lot of people. You eat a lot of different foods. You get to experience now this may be a little bit different for somebody who goes to work for a company initially. They may not have the same freedom or downtime as someone like me who's self-employed does. But even Ed, when he worked for a company in the very beginning, still was able to do things and do some sightseeing and that kind of stuff. You make good money. And if you're uneducated, like you don't have a degree that you need for a job, maybe, at home, this is great. You don't need a degree to do this job. It's kind of, you can move up. You can move up. Like you could go from just doing regular freight to maybe doing specialized freight. There are people that haul oversized freight. Like you'll see those with the wide load things. Those pay a lot of money. So you kind of work your way up to that. Women can do that too. So I just think it's a good job. Freeing, it's empowering, it's fun, and you make money, you travel. If you don't mind being alone, if you're going to do this by yourself, I think you have to sort of be a self-starter. You're managing your own time. So even if you're with a company and they say, okay, this load needs to be delivered by 8:00, Tuesday morning, you have to know that, okay, I can't just lay around in the truck. I kind of got to make my way. I'm going 800 miles. I have to time manage that to get there. So you have to be motivated enough to say, okay, today I got to drive 400 miles. I got to do that today in order to be at this spot tomorrow. Our truck is 1% of the trucks that are out there. We don't see a lot of these. Like we could be in the parking lot of 100 trucks and there's one truck like ours. When I first went on the road with Ed, we were in a smaller truck, the 2 seats, and then right behind our seats was our bed. There was no kitchen, shower, bathroom, nothing like that. So when I first went on the road, we were like gypsies. We just stuffed everywhere in the things in the truck, anywhere there was space. We made space for our clothes. We rigged up little things to hang stuff. We didn't cook in the truck. We had a little microwave. So, you could do microwave stuff or instant oatmeal for breakfast, that kind of stuff. But most of our meals we ate out in that truck because we didn't have the kitchen. And I think my experience is different both because I'm part of a team and because I also have this kind of truck. But yeah, I do have a different experience than somebody else. who might be just a solo, regular, female truck driver who's not with anybody else and who doesn't have the custom truck that I have. I mean, the guy that taught me in trucking school, he had been a driver for like 50 years, and he said women are better drivers than men any day of the week. And the industry does want more women. I just thought it would be a fun job to do. When I was younger, I wanted to be a driver. Like, I thought I'd be a limo driver. I lived in New York. I'm like, ooh, I'll pick up people from the airport and, take them places, and I'll, drive executives all around New York City. And, I thought that would be like a cool job to have. And I always liked driving. I was always the driver of my friends. Whenever we went somewhere, we'd pile into my car. This kind of seems like a natural progression into this industry. I like it.
No, I mean, thank you for the work that you both do.
Thank you for thanking us. Yeah, I appreciate it.
And thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. No problem. It was a lot of fun.
We'd like to thank Salena for being on the show, for sharing her invaluable insights and experiences as a truck driver. To learn more about her trucking journey, make sure to check out her blog, The Daily Rant, at salenalettera.com. And that's SALENALETTERA.com. We'll also have a link to it in the episode's show notes.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bound by the Cloak. Check us out on social media. That's X, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, we're everywhere. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Bound by the Cloak. We'll be back again in 2 weeks with a brand new episode. Thanks for listening.
Until next time.